Welcome to the Reidsville Chamber of Commerce News and Views show. I'm your host, Diane Sawyer, President and CEO of the Reidsville Chamber. Today's guest we have with us, Wes Pitts, who is one of our ambassadors. So welcome to Meet the Ambassador segment. Welcome to the show, Wes.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited for you to be here. You have been a new fun addition this year. So just let's start with, tell us about who you are. And I should have said, you're with First Presbyterian Church.
I've been pastor at First Presbyterian Church for coming up on 5 years, and an ambassador for what, a year?
Year and a half, maybe? Yeah.
So I'm originally from Atlanta, Georgia, and have moved around quite a bit in my life. So I went to college in Charlotte, where I met my wife. We traveled from Charlotte to South Korea to teach English. From South Korea, we landed back in Atlanta. Then I went to seminary in Chicago, came back to North Carolina, first in Raleigh, then back to the Charlotte area, finally landing in Statesville for 5 years. And then now we're in Reidsville.
Tell us how you got to Reidsville. How did that happen?
So I, as a pastor, I was in a church in Statesville and finishing all the requirements to be ordained, which in the Presbyterian church is very large. Mm-hmm. A lot of things you have to do. And so I really wanted to stay in the state. I love North Carolina. My wife is from North Carolina. We wanted to be close to family. When we moved here, we had a 3-month-old son. And so being as close to family as we could is important for us. And so moving here kept us in a small town, which I've learned to really love. I know I'm from Atlanta. I've lived in really large cities, and I love that too, but there's something about small towns that you can get more engaged, and I feel like you make more meaningful relationships and more meaningful changes in people's lives, and that's something that I love. So Reidsville was a place. I did a national search for my first call as a pastor. Interviewed as far away as Iowa and Wisconsin, but Reidsville felt like it was the place. I loved the people that were on the committee that interviewed me. I loved being able to, drive here. There was a place for my son immediately to get enrolled in childcare, and it was an affordable childcare. Houses were affordable and really nice, and so it was just like a really good place for us to come in. Me kind of launching a career. My wife was able to keep her job and just work from home. So it all just worked out so well.
Just lined up.
It lined up.
It's just preordained and all the things. Well, it's funny that you say several of the things you said because they're so relevant to some of the things that are happening right now. So at first, I think, you're talking about small town feel. Like with this stage in your life, right? Like, that was something my husband and I talked about a lot. I really wanted to travel, and I'm big into, I've been to other countries and wanted to do things. Didn't get to do all of the other things, but I'm hoping to bring that back now that my children are older. But being in a small town at this stage in your life, when you have small children and when you're doing all that portion, it does make a difference.
It does, and because we don't have family in town, we still have a community of support that if we were kind of lost in a big city, we may not have. And so I have neighbors I can call if something happens and need someone to pick up my son from school. When my mom passed away, I had to leave immediately, and my son was in school, and immediately someone went to go pick him up and make sure he was taken care of. So that's what you get in a small town that you just don't get other places.
You don't. And, you mentioned immediately there was affordable childcare and a spot. And so we just had a documentary screening with Rockingham County Partnership for Children because the childcare crisis is real. And, people put in their names when they find out they're pregnant, and wait a year or more sometimes to get the right spot. So that was huge.
It was huge. And part of that was because of my position, and our church has a child care center. It's the oldest one in the city of Reidsville. And, I was moved to the top of the list because of my position in the church. And so I got a piece of privilege that other people don't get. But we still do have a lot of really good high quality childcare that is far more affordable. I tell people how much I pay a year for childcare, and their mouth drops because they can't believe it. I have friends in other medium-sized cities, and they're paying, $12,000 to $15,000 a year per child.
Yeah.
And
Well, the
it's unreal.
statistics in North Carolina show that it costs more now to send a child to daycare than it does to college.
Yeah.
And it's readily becoming one of the largest issues for workforce development and for economic development, and just trying to, so, we're partnering with some of our local folks, just trying to start figuring out how does that work and what does that look like. So I'm thankful. I'm thankful that you were able to, and it's funny that you say that about the privilege, because like we've had all these discussions. My husband's great-grandmother was our babysitter, and we did pay her, but it was a fraction of the cost that we would have paid in childcare. And while my kids didn't go to pre-K and couldn't get a spot in pre-K because I tried, it's a privilege that my children were safe and cared for, and not in a place where I had to be concerned about somebody harming them. So I'm probably too cared for in some instances. But, I think that one of the things that you and I talk about, which is kind of like how you became an ambassador, is that engagement and that community involvement and that small town feel and all of those things that you were talking about. So tell us a little bit about that. Tell us about why you wanted to become an ambassador, kind of what that means to you, how you're able to use that to meet people and to make it be a part of what you're trying to do.
Well, so when I was in Statesville, I was very involved and found just so much meaning in that involvement. I was with the Downtown Corporation, with the Chamber. I did the leadership program in Statesville. And just, it was incredible to meet people, to get engaged. I knew, because I was involved, I knew where needs were and where me as a faith leader could respond. And was able to do a lot of really good stuff there. And so when I was looking for churches to come to, First Pres here in Reidsville wanted a pastor who would be engaged in the community. That was on the part of the things that I put on my, what's essentially a resume. We call them different things in the church world. But I did the beer garden at summer concerts in Statesville. And the committee loved that. They loved that the pastor's out there serving beers to folks in the name of helping the city and getting people together and all that. And so that's what I wanted to do here. And so obviously COVID shut things down pretty much immediately when I came. But as soon as I joined Kiwanis, and then through Kiwanis was able to move into doing some more things and to the chamber I believe in. I know that without small businesses and the support that chambers offer, communities just aren't as strong. And it makes sense for a faith community to join with the chamber because we have the same mission in mind and the strength of our community.
Right.
There's some other layers to it, of course, from churches and chambers. There's economics versus faith and all that, but it really all plays hand in hand. Your goal is to make this a better city. My goal is to make this a better city. And so it just makes sense. And I want to be involved. I want my son to see me involved so that he learns that it means a lot to be invested in the community that you live in. And so that's what I do.
Oh my goodness. And I'm going to forget because I want to break down some of those things, just like in the last little run I wanted to break down. So it's funny that you say that about kids. It matters to me so much. My 13, 10, and 7-year-old, they started asking questions. Well, Mom, why do you do that? Or why is that a part of your job? Or we break down, it looks like a bunch of events to them because that's what they're involved in. They don't see the other. But during COVID, when they were being homeschooled basically by me and on their Zoom with their teachers, they were able to see how much I was, and they hear my phone conversations and they hear the things that I'm doing to help people. And so it's very important for my kids to see me active and not just, they see that director of softball at, Wentworth PTA, and they see, and so they're starting to understand what that looks like. So it's very important to me too. So I know that we share that. And then it's funny, a lot of people don't know that my background is public health and public health education. And so the circle of wellness is very important to me, and it's something that we focused on a lot in school. So one of our projects was to go visit churches of different faiths and at UNCG. So there were some options in Greensboro. There were, we would have to go ride public transportation. So they wanted us to understand like the circle of wellness. And so I've always said there is a place for the faith-based community. There's a place for the spiritual to be a part of our community since I've come to this side. So I moved from helping people and preventing them from being sick or trying to be a little more holistic, like in their wellness, to holistic and the wellness of the community and the wellness of their businesses and that sort of thing. So it's funny because I've always seen and I've thought, and so even since you've come, we've had a few more churches. So we have a handful of churches, some of the most prominent, the largest congregations usually, because most of those see how it fits and how it's a part of it. So all that to say, it takes us back to another conversation that we were having about how church is getting ready to celebrate 150-year anniversary.
150th anniversary. Our First Presbyterian was founded by Wentworth Presbyterian and Bethesda Presbyterian out in Ruffin. Several members from there lived in this area as it was, the train tracks came through, and they saw a need because obviously things were happening here. And so several folks came from each church and started the groundwork about 10 years before we were first founded, and built their very first church right over, actually just down the street where the Belvedere apartments are. That's where we were first located. And then we moved to our current site, which is where we had extra land around where our original manse was, and built that site in 1922, added onto it in 33, and then in the 50s. We're currently engaged in a large-scale renovation of the space to kind of return it to that original feel. And so with our anniversary, we're doing this large capital campaign to do a lot of the foundation work to have a solid structure so that we can give more to the community, because the thing that I have learned is that my church wants to be engaged. Their number one thing that they're interested in is mission, and it's local here. So since I've been here, we've partnered with Lot 2540, which is a feeding ministry in the county, with some other churches to engage in how we can help our neighbors. We were foundational in starting the outreach center years ago, and we continue to be engaged with them. We've started a program, a National Night Out cookout on our property, just to get the community engaged and meeting public servants, our police officers, our firefighters, our city council, and a place for us all to get together, and inviting some churches into that. Recently, some of the churches are getting together, and we get folks knocking on our door all the time asking for help. My policy is anyone who comes, I'm going to do what I can, so long as I have funds available. And so all the churches downtown, we're starting to just get a database together so we know who can help and what kind of help they can offer. And is it just giving money, or First Baptist does some financial classes to help build financial literacy for folks. And so how can we partner to make sure we are being more holistic in our approach and serving people's needs, but not just the immediate needs, but long-term needs. And so it takes a community, and
it does.
Not one church can do it all. And so it's really great to have other churches to partner with, and then other community agencies to partner with.
Yes. Remind me offline to talk to you about the Grace Network.
Okay.
Because I was a part of that in another community. So it's funny, we're talking about the 150th, and we're just on the heels of the city of Reidsville celebrating their sesquicentennial, their 150th anniversary.
And that helped the church know that word. So when I was in college, the college I went to celebrated sesquicentennial. So I already knew the word, and then the whole community learned it with Reidsville sesquicentennial. Now we're celebrating it.
And I'm sure there will be several that will follow behind, right? Because of the fact that once the city is incorporated. So it's kind of cool. We were just saying, your folks had started the work many years before, but by then the city had finally gotten their stuff together and they incorporated, and then here we are. And I did not know that about Wentworth and Bethesda coming together, and so it's kind of funny because a lot of people don't know like the history and figuring out that, you know, Wentworth is the county seat because it was basically the center by like horseback. You could get to Wentworth from any part of the county in about the same amount of time or whatever. And so there's a lot of history like right there in the center, but then as things started happening, and for us, like obviously the boom of the tobacco industry and American tobacco and all the things that the different pieces of the Penn family, you know, just contributed to Reidsville. So it's so cool to see that a church that was incorporated and is now celebrating their anniversary is still relevant and is still being so active and so involved, and such a huge community partner. And it's interesting because before you came, so I've been here, this will be 13 years this summer doing this piece. And before you came, there were other like active like council people or, you know, people part of your church who would say and do that piece, even when there was like an interim or whatever. And so it's just been so clear that First Pres wanted to be active and involved all this time.
We've had community leaders part of our congregation from our founding. The current city attorney is a member of our church. Doctors and lawyers and public health officials and teachers and all those folks make up the people who sit in our pews, and they all just want to give. That's what their mission is, and that's why I want to be part of the chamber and other community organizations, because that's one way to do it. Now, a lot of folks join a chamber because it helps their business.
Sure.
For a church, it looks a little different. I don't think we're going to get new members because we're part of the chamber, but I do think we will get out in the community and serve more, and I will know what's going on so that I can direct our resources to be of best help to this community. And in that way, we are enriched because our mission is the community. And so it helps us live into our mission in ways that other things can't.
It's kind of funny. You guys actually fall more in line with like our large industry in what you get out of the chamber versus say like not really like the other nonprofits. The other nonprofits are here for their mission and to find people to help support their mission and to tell their story. And then you're here kind of for the same reason the industry. A lot of our large industry are here to make, they support what the chamber does because it helps make a better quality of life and a better community for their employees. But they're also here to validate those nonprofits. They're here to, you know, get resources they want to give back and put into their community, and they use the chamber as a vehicle to figure that out. So you guys almost fall in line a lot with them because you're not here to get more members, just like they're not here necessarily to get more employees. They're here to figure out how to best use what they're trying to put back into the world and get the connections and meet the people. And like you said, be kind of apprised of what's going on and be connected. And it all matters because the chamber's kind of, and as you probably figured this out, because Statesville's amazing and their downtown corporation is amazing. And we've been to the Main Street Conference I actually went to Statesville when it was hosted there several years ago. And, you know, if you've seen one chamber or one downtown corporation, you've probably only seen, you know, one because we're all different. But we have the same common theme to make our community better and to be that center hub. And I think more and more and more, our chamber has grown to know that people know, well, if they need something, I'm not going to necessarily know the answer, but I'm going to be able to help you find the answer. So
it's connectional.
It is. It is like human 411 all day. So
it's so important. The other thing that we get as a benefit is when I go to coffees, I get to meet people.
That's right.
And we have been able to do business with people because our goal is always to choose the local business over a larger business or a
online business
or whatever, whenever we can. And sometimes it's just about finding out who they are. And it's wonderful to find those people, and then the service that you get because they are local is 100 times better. And so it's just nice to be part of a community, to support and be active, but also find ways that I can have other folks support us in the ways that I'm not equipped to do.
That's what matters. And, you know, we've all been there where we needed something last minute, and a lot of times you can't call a
Yep.
small business and expect something the next day. So, I mean, there has to be thought into that, and there has to be, but for people who really want to make that extra effort and who are prepared and do that, once you make the relationship, a lot of times it's easier because you have that connection and you're like, oh, I've got to call
Yep.
Randy over here at Screen Print, or I've got to call, you know, whoever it is. I've got to call Rich at Feltz, or I've got to call. And so it's easier to make in your brain that connection of I got to get it done in enough time that I'm going to receive the product that I needed. But when you know that you're helping a neighbor have their business and survive, and their employees and their families and all those things, like it makes a difference.
It does. It's keeping them in business is quality of life for everyone.
Yep.
And so that's what we need to be about.
And it's so funny because you're a part of the Kiwanis, and so you are very familiar with All Inclusive Park and the donation that was made on behalf of not only just the Kiwanis, but our other civic organizations as well. We had the Rotarians, and we had, I believe, the Lions Club made a donation, and there was also the grant from the Reidsville Area Foundation, and there was the City of Reidsville, and then there was what Toy Makers did with the plane, and all of that started with two things: the donation of a plane from a local resident, but also the Kiwanis celebrating their anniversary
and wanting to do something
for
the children in the community, and being
the swing.
being able to just it just takes one idea, and then because you're in this connectional area, it grows into something far bigger. And the park that's there now is incredible.
It's so
my son had
incredible.
his 4th birthday party there right after it opened, and he loves going there.
It's amazing. And again, you know, people see that and they're like, oh, well, the city spent. No, the city didn't. Like, there were all these incredible humans who came together and made this really cool thing happen. So,
And make life here better because they're supporting.
and there's nowhere around here. Like, I think they said it was like the first of its kind
In
for
this area.
miles.
Yeah. And
So-
inclusive play areas are so important, and they're incredibly expensive.
They're incredibly expensive, and they're becoming more and more and more important. And, you know, some of it, excuse me, some of it I think from a public health standpoint, when you look at disease process and epidemiology, and you're thinking about how things happen, and people are like, oh, you just hear about so many more. Well, science has evolved. People have been able to figure out, study things, name things, classify things. But also, we've become more social media. We've become, you know, we have all these electronics and all this immediate connection. So now, things that weren't discussed, or that were only discussed with your doctor and your family when we were younger, when our parents were younger, now it's just kind of more out in the open. And so when you talk about like all-inclusive park and being able to offer that, those are things that years ago people wouldn't have said, well, because my child needs, or because my adult child needs, or because my family, to be able to go out together. Maybe it's the husband, maybe it's who knows, but to be able to talk about it and to be able to provide that, like, people think that Reidsville is not progressive, but I'm here to tell you that it's so much more progressive than a lot of our neighbors. And it's because of people like council and people like folks that have been involved in your church and some of the other churches forever, like those movers and shakers and people who have been forward thinking forever. And we've had so many that have, it's actually really sad. You know, we've just lost a couple of really important community members, and prior to that we had lost a couple. So I mean, you had Laura Feltz, and you had people like female mayor, like, and somebody who was such an integral part of our community and of things like founding churches and organizations and just doing those kinds of things. And you know, the most recent, losing Dave with Cafe 99. I mean, it's almost not real, it feels like. And he did so much for the community. And so coming from Statesville, you can truly understand, like with him owning buildings and investing in buildings and then selling buildings and then putting other businesses in his buildings, like how important that was he revitalized. He was a huge person to revitalize downtown Reidsville, like opening Cafe 99 in 1999 and becoming like an anchor store, an anchor restaurant. So many stores have come because he did that.
Yeah.
And so it's just, it's kind of crazy to me to think about how all of that plays a part.
It does, yeah, 100%. We need people to believe in the town and commit to live here and work here and invest their time and energy. And our folks in our congregation do that. We have so many folks who are born and raised in Reidsville and want Reidsville to continue to be the place where their children are raised and their grandchildren are raised. And when families do leave, it breaks their heart, but they all want to come back.
Oh,
and
for sure.
It's really amazing to see. When I talk about Reidsville to friends from other places, they don't always have the best perception, which is a shame because you come here and there's a lot of really good stuff going on. And all it takes is us being invested in what we're doing together, and we just can do really, really big stuff.
Yep.
Just in the time that I've been here, I've seen so much work in this downtown. And now, my family and I can walk up and down the street. There are stores that the kids love to go to. We have a brewery down the street that they love to go there too, and we love to go there. There's a park we can go to, all in walking distance. And for me, my church is right there. I can park there and just walk anywhere I want to. I walked here this morning, and it's so nice being a part of that kind of community where there are people who love it and are investing in it, and it makes me want to invest more of myself, just because you catch what they have. Absolutely.
And I think for me, what all of those things that you just said, and so the city was really fortunate to be able to do the streetscape update from money from the federal government, from all of the post-pandemic stuff with the CARES Act and all that stuff. But now, as the Downtown Corporation, we're seeing people are revitalizing their buildings, they're taking awnings down, they're painting, so all that stuff is starting to flood. So it sparked a whole new, let's make it pretty, because when all the trees left, it was like, oh, we can see the buildings and they're beautiful, but let's get back to, doing what we need to do. So
yeah.
We are out of time. Is there anything that you want to talk about that we didn't, or let the viewers know? Because all of what we talked about doing this show right here is what's important, is letting people know how the really great stuff is happening in Reidsville. So is there anything you want to invite them out, tell them where your church is?
So First Presbyterian's at 318 South Main, just across from the fire station in that area. We are a welcoming congregation, open to anyone, no matter your faith background. We are a moderate church, and so we have people from the left and the right worshiping together, and that's important for us. We find common cause in support of our community and our love of Jesus, and that's all we focus on. And so if that's the type of faith community that folks are looking for, we are it, and are happy to welcome you. And if you want to just not sure about worship but want to help in mission stuff, our doors are open all the time. We are happy to have you help us feed the community. We have an amazing community garden that it takes a lot of work for that community garden, and everything that we raise goes to feed others in the community, from the soup kitchen to the mobile market. Wherever there are hungry people, we want to give them fresh food. And speaking of that garden, one of the amazing things that we have done from some of the caretakers of that garden is also grow flowers, so we can give fresh flowers to families that we also give food to. And it sparks some really incredible joy in their lives to not just get food, but get something beautiful, and the care to give them that, which I think is just a wonderful touch. So we'd love to have folks come out. There'll be more soon about a community celebration as we celebrate our 150th in January, but we're excited.
That's awesome. Congratulations on that. Thank you for being a part. Thank you for being involved in all of the things that you're involved in. And we appreciate you coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, that's it for this episode of News and Views. As always, you can find us in downtown Reidsville at 140 South Scale Street or online at reidsvillechamber.org and all of our social media channels. So stay tuned. We'll see you soon.